Have you ever wondered how a company that once controlled the mobile phone industry simply disappeared from the top? At one point, nearly everyone on the planet either owned a Nokia phone or knew someone who did. It wasn't just another brand. Nokia was the brand. It dominated the market, sold hundreds of millions of devices every year, and seemed completely unstoppable. Then, in what felt like the blink of an eye, everything collapsed. The company that had conquered the world suddenly found itself fighting just to survive. The story begins long before mobile phones even existed. Nokia wasn't born as a technology company. In 1865, it started as a small paper mill in Finland. Over the following decades, it expanded into rubber products, cables, electronics, and eventually telecommunications. By the 1990s, Nokia made a bold decision to focus almost entirely on mobile phones. That decision changed the company's future forever. As mobile phones became more affordable, Nokia quickly built a reputation that competitors struggled to match. Its phones were durable, simple to use, and incredibly reliable. You could drop one on concrete, spill water on it, or keep it for years, and it would still work. Battery life lasted for days instead of hours. For millions of people, buying a Nokia wasn't even a decision. It was the obvious choice. By the early 2000s, Nokia wasn't just leading the market, it was dominating it. In many countries, its market share was larger than all of its competitors combined. The famous Nokia ringtone became one of the most recognizable sounds on Earth, and games like Snake turned basic mobile phones into a source of entertainment for an entire generation. Inside the company, confidence was everywhere. Investors loved Nokia. Consumers trusted it. Engineers believed they were building the future. The company had thousands of talented employees, billions of dollars in revenue, and one of the strongest global distribution networks in history. It looked almost impossible for anyone to challenge its position. Then, in January 2007, something happened that most Nokia executives didn't consider an immediate threat. A man wearing a black turtleneck walked onto a stage in California and introduced the first iPhone. Many people inside Nokia believed it was simply an expensive product for a niche audience. After all, Nokia had years of experience, a massive customer base, and countless successful devices. Why would one touchscreen phone change everything? That assumption became one of the most expensive mistakes in business history. The iPhone wasn't just another phone. It completely changed what people expected from a mobile device. Suddenly, the phone wasn't only for making calls or sending text messages. It became a camera, a music player, a navigation system, an internet browser, and eventually a platform for millions of apps. Consumers weren't simply buying hardware anymore. They were buying an entire ecosystem. While Apple focused on software and user experience, Nokia continued to believe its hardware advantage would protect it. The company kept improving traditional phones while the entire market quietly shifted beneath its feet. Soon after, Google introduced Android, allowing dozens of manufacturers to build smartphones around the same operating system. Companies like Samsung adapted quickly, while Nokia hesitated. Inside Nokia, another problem was growing. Decision-making had become painfully slow. Different teams competed against each other instead of working together. Promising ideas often disappeared before reaching customers, not because they lacked innovation, but because the organization had become too bureaucratic to move quickly. While competitors raced ahead, Nokia found itself trapped between two worlds. Its existing software, Symbian, had been designed for an era when phones had physical keypads, not large touchscreens. Engineers knew it needed a complete overhaul, but rebuilding an operating system while defending the world's largest mobile business was far more difficult than anyone had imagined. Every delay gave Apple and Android another opportunity to capture millions of new customers. Instead of making one clear decision, Nokia tried several different strategies at the same time. Some teams pushed for improving Symbian. Others wanted to accelerate a new operating system called MeeGo. The result was confusion. Resources were divided, development slowed down, and products reached the market later than expected. Meanwhile, consumers had already begun falling in love with smartphones that felt faster, smarter, and easier to use. By 2010, the numbers were becoming impossible to ignore. Nokia was still selling millions of phones, but its dominance was fading. Market share was shrinking, profits were under pressure, and investors were beginning to question whether the company truly understood where the industry was heading. Then came one of the most dramatic moments in Nokia's history. In 2010, the company hired Stephen Elop as its new CEO. Shortly after taking over, he sent an internal memo that would later become famous around the world. He compared Nokia to a man standing on a burning oil platform. Staying where he was meant certain disaster, but jumping into the freezing ocean was terrifying. His message was simple. Nokia could no longer continue the way it had been operating. Soon after, Nokia announced a partnership with Microsoft. Instead of building smartphones around Android, the company chose Windows Phone as its future. On paper, the decision sounded logical. Microsoft had enormous financial resources, decades of software experience, and a globally recognized brand. Together, they hoped to create a serious competitor to Apple and Android. But the market had already chosen its winners. Developers focused on building apps for iPhone and Android because that was where the users were. Consumers wanted phones with the largest app stores. As a result, Windows Phone struggled to attract both developers and customers. Even though many reviewers praised Nokia's hardware and camera quality, buyers kept asking the same question. Does it have the apps I use every day? Too often, the answer was no. Sales continued to fall. Every quarter became more difficult than the last. Thousands of employees lost their jobs as factories closed and departments were restructured. For a company that had once symbolized Finnish innovation and employed tens of thousands of people, the decline was heartbreaking. Then in 2013, the news became official. Microsoft agreed to buy Nokia's mobile phone business for approximately $7.2 billion. For millions of people around the world, it felt like the end of an era. The company that had once ruled the mobile industry was giving up the very business that had made it famous. Ironically, the acquisition did not save Microsoft's smartphone ambitions either. Windows Phone continued to lose market share, and only a few years later, Microsoft effectively exited the smartphone business altogether. One of the biggest bets in technology history had failed for both companies. But here's the surprising part. Nokia didn't disappear. Although its phone division was sold, the remaining company transformed itself into something completely different. Instead of competing in consumer smartphones, Nokia focused on telecommunications infrastructure, networking equipment, and the technology that powers mobile networks around the world. Today, while most people no longer carry a Nokia phone, millions still rely on Nokia technology every time they connect to a cellular network. The rise and fall of Nokia isn't really a story about mobile phones. It's a story about success, creating overconfidence. When companies dominate an industry for too long, they often begin believing that customers will always choose them simply because they always have. But markets don't reward the biggest companies forever. They reward the companies that adapt the fastest. Nokia had brilliant engineers, enormous financial resources, global brand recognition, and loyal customers. What it underestimated was how quickly consumer expectations could change. The battle was no longer about building better hardware. It was about creating an ecosystem that people wanted to be part of. Apple understood that. Google understood that. Nokia realized it too late. History has repeated this lesson again and again. Giants don't usually collapse because they suddenly become bad companies. They collapse because they continue solving yesterday's problems, while someone else builds tomorrow's future. And that's exactly why the story of Nokia remains one of the greatest business lessons ever told. It reminds every entrepreneur, every investor, and every company that no matter how powerful you become, success is never permanent. The moment you believe you're too big to fail may be the exact moment your competitors begin writing your ending. If Nokia could fall after conquering the world, The real question isn't how it happened. It's whether the next giant has already begun making the same mistake.